people from all over the country have been doing it. I've had people from Seattle. I had a modeling troupe do a modeling shoot from Miami. People from New York, Delaware. I mean, so it's something cool to do. I mean, all you got to do is reach out to me at www.blackcotton.us to contact us. Just shoot me a message. I always respond back.
And how have people found out about Black Cotton? How are you doing your own marketing? Because like I said, you talked about the internet, and I know that's an important part of your marketing. But how did these people, like say from Miami, with the modeling troupe, and some of these other folks, find out about you? What are some of the ways that you are encouraging people to find out about you? And exactly what is involved in the tour? Because, I've still got to do the tour myself at some point. It's been a minute since I've been on farmland. My mom still lives in Rocky Mountain. We still have family farmland that is all part of our property, but I've not been on the farms myself in a while, so I probably need to come and visit the tour as well as get to some of our own family farms, because we have some farmland that's still out there that belongs in our family, but I've been not one to get by that as much as I probably should.
Well, come on now. It's always inviting to come down east. And,
and that's true.
But on the tour...
Yeah, so you were saying on the tour?
But on the tour, basically, you see my grandfather house, my great grandparents' house. We go and see the little family cemetery. I even actually have the family cemetery on the home place where the first generation started at, and he was born in 1871. Reverend D.L. Tillery. So he's who started pretty much our family farm, and he was born in Tillery Plantation. So. Right there, we're really close to Tillery, North Carolina, so we kind of give a historical, understanding of where our roots come from.
Now, when y'all started the farmland, was he first generation removed from slavery? The first people that started the farm, or was he right in with that person still in slavery, or how did it work in terms of the history of slavery in terms of when y'all took over the farm?
Well, he bought out, outright bought the first piece of land, and he was born in 1871, so it was right after the Emancipation Proclamation. But from my understanding, everybody who was from Tillery that was on the plantation still lived on the plantation. Like, they just didn't pick up and move. So, like him and my great-grandfather, they both still lived in Tillery.
Wow. So they still lived on the property that was originally owned by the plantation masters.
Well, no, they moved from Tillery to Rich Square. Like, my family farm is in Rich Square. So they, D.L. Tillery, he bought the very first part of the farm in Rich Square. I don't know what brought him there, but that's where the first part of the farm started. And then my grandfather bought a part. My great grandfather bought a part. Then my grandfather bought a part. My father bought a part. So it's just, it's been added on every generation.
Wow. And we know that the whole history of family farming is very important, but also the history, like you just mentioned, of having those family plots. Because I know even in Holliston, North Carolina, we have a family plot where some of my family members are buried at. Not all of them. They're buried in some other locations as well, but we definitely have a family plot that's in Holliston, North Carolina, and you just mentioned one there. So a lot of times I think that we as a people sometimes forget the rich history that our own ancestors have, that we need to keep their stories alive. So I think that's part of what you're doing with Black Cotton, is that you're not just keeping your own story alive, but you're keeping the story alive of your ancestors.
Absolutely, man. Like, a big inspiration behind me doing this cotton thing is when I grew up, I knew so many black cotton farmers, and then I realized, not too many years ago that we're pretty much disappearing. So, like, I'm afraid that, my ancestors, I can't show the respect I want to by not, letting us just disappear. And I'm not trying to knock everybody, 'cause I know how hard the business is, but, I want to keep fighting to the end at least. And this is my way of fighting back.
Well, we definitely appreciate your fighting back that way and everything. I want you to stay on the line because we got a couple of other people that will be joining the conversation, because as always on this show, we're covering a variety of different things. So we're going to go from the whole story of black farming to a little bit with theater, because I think I've got Mr. Charles Phaneuf on the line, and I might even have a comedian on the line as well. But don't dang off the line because we'll be here all the way till 9, and some of the conversation may even loop back, or you may even want to jump into conversation because we're going to talk about a lot of different things. But definitely, I appreciate you being on the first part and everything. And will you give that website one more time for those people that might be interested in the tour and also learning more about black farming?
Yes, please. You can check me out at www.blackcotton.us or follow me on Instagram at blackcotton.us. BLACKCOTTON.us. Looking forward to hearing from you.
Appreciate it. And like I said, stay on the line, please, as long as you can. And, Dean, I heard at least one bell, maybe two bells.
You heard one bell. We have Charles Phaneuf on the line. He'll be with us in just 1 second.
Appreciate it.
This is Nikki Hall, founder of Simply Radiant LLC, a woman with great passion and skill to make you look and feel better. Meet me where you are. Let's take it to another level, a new you. See you soon. Call 919-971-6243. Make your place today.
All right, welcome back to Straight Talk with Dean and Mark. Mr. Phaneuf, you are on the line with us. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
How are you doing, Charles? I've known Charles for a while. I've known Charles back when he was a young man that was actually an intern, if I remember correctly. He was an intern coming from us from the D.C. area. So just to kind of like make a little bit of a transition and everything, tell us where you grew up and everything. And one, did you ever have any dealings at all with rural North Carolina or just rural living? Because earlier we were talking to Mr. Tillery, who's still on the line. And, of course, he's talking about his business, Black Cotton, which is an artistic business. They're actually making artistic designs out of cotton and everything. But he grew up in rural North Carolina, and I know that you probably did not have that kind of background because I know part of your background was living in D.C., but I also don't know every other place that you've lived at. So I was just wondering if you would just share people a little bit about your history, and, of course, we'll get to Theater in the Park and some of the amazing things that you're doing.
Oh, thanks, Mark. Well, yeah, and first of all, hey, I'm also sorry about Marquette this weekend, man. Been thinking about you, and but you know, so goes the tournament, and it was a great season for y'all, all the same.
Yes, it was a good season, and we did get slaughtered.
John Morant is something, man. Just watching him play it's a joy, you know. But yeah, thanks for asking about my background. We, you know, of course, we met at the Durham Arts Council in, I guess, around 2003, 2004. I came and interned at the Arts Council after I graduated from Carolina. Before that, I was in North Carolina for a while, living in Raleigh. Brief stay in Tarboro before that, but I grew up in Michigan mostly, and I moved around a lot as a kid. And we actually lived a lot in kind of rural areas because my dad was in manufacturing, so that's just kind of where, you know, manufacturing was a lot. But now I do have kind of a different kind of relationship with rural North Carolina because my wife is from Greene County, and so I spend a fair amount of time going down there, and you know, really love going and visiting her family. And you know, it's definitely like I've learned some things about rural North Carolina that I didn't know. You know, that are maybe a little counter to some of the things that, you know, people think in bigger cities. And but I love hanging out in rural North Carolina. Her family story is a little bit interesting. She was born in Kinston, but they moved to Greene County, which is a even more rural county because how great the schools were, and still are. And so that's been kind of interesting, spending time going down there with her. And then, you know, the theater, we serve people who come to Raleigh from throughout rural North Carolina, and we have some satellite programs that are also a little bit outside of the city. We do some programming in Wendell. We do some programming in Knightdale. Knightdale's not that rural anymore. Wake Forest, Apex. Some of those places are, you know, obviously much more suburban now than they used to be. But yeah, so that's cool. I enjoyed listening to a little bit of the last segment and the gentleman talking about black cotton. So
yeah.
I don't know that I'm the most knowledgeable person you have about rural North Carolina, but I'm happy to.
No problem. I was just curious I was just curious what you thought were some of the stereotypes that surprised you when you were because you just mentioned that when you went to your wife's hometown and around those areas, you said that there were some things that surprised you that were, I guess, counter to the stereotypes that you were thinking when you were growing up around Michigan and everything. I was just wondering what were some of those stereotypes.
Yeah. Well, both Michigan and I think in Raleigh. I mean, for example, one thing that's interesting is that Greene County, I believe, is the first county in the whole country that provided every child with a laptop. And, you know, they were able to get some, I'm not exactly sure the details of the grants that supported that, but, you know, it's not, you know, you don't think of like rural counties as being really, you know, ahead of the curve on technology and things like that, but they really were. And, you know, and then I think there's like other things that I wasn't surprised by, like, you know, how good a lot of the food is and, you know, the fact that, you know, their family like knew a ton of people in agriculture. And so, yeah, I guess there's some things that were surprising. Also, her mom operates a retail store in downtown Snow Hill, which is cool. It's interesting to, you know, see that there's kind of a, you know, there's a lot of like businesses and like small towns in rural North Carolina that I think, you know, I mean, I guess a lot of us now in Raleigh are like very aware of what's happening in Kinston because Kinston's got a little bit of a scene going on, but there's a lot more places that are doing interesting things and have a lot of revitalization happening.
Yeah, and more people are finding themselves having to move to those communities because, like you said, and like Julius said, the gentrification is out here and everything. Not everybody can afford the apartments that are existing in Raleigh or even existing in Durham, some of these prices that are out there and everything. But I was just wondering, one of the things I've always been proud of you about with everything that you do is a lot of your theater deals around social justice. I mean, yes, you do some of the classics and things of that nature, whether it's Shakespeare or whatever else, but a lot of times you're not afraid to use theater as a tool to make social justice statements. And I was just wondering, is that always something that was in the back of your mind growing up, or is this just something that you cultivated as you developed as an adult? Because that's something that I've seen. Like you said, I know Theater in the Park has done stuff at Hayti. You've done stuff with the Sherry Holmes group that encourages black theater goers to come to different productions and things of that nature. So it just seems like you've been very much involved in just making sure that a lot of the plays that you've done have been social justice plays. I want to say we talked earlier at the beginning of the show about the movie that's now out about Ann Atwater. And I want to say, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't one of the early productions done at your theater, or was it connected with y'all some kind of way? I can't remember, but it seems to me that I have a vague memory of that.
Yeah, I wish I could say that we had something to do with that, but I did see that play at Man Bites Dog. You're talking about Best of Enemies, and that was a pretty spectacular production. And Lakeisha Coffey, Derek Ivey, that was really good. I wish we had produced that play. We probably can't get the rights now, but yeah, I appreciate you noticing that. I think that, you know, it's my interest in theater, wherever it's being produced, that it speaks to what a community is interested in talking about. And so, you know, I think there's a lot of things that we want to talk about and we need to talk about in North Carolina right now. And so we, you know, tried to pick some plays that kind of deal with that. I can't remember, Mark, if you came and saw Blood Don't Sign My Name that we did last May. I think probably most of your listeners know that story. And what was cool for me about that was not just that we did it, and Mike Wiley was really, you know, gracious to give us the rights to do the world premiere of his ensemble version of the play, because he'd been doing a one-man version for a while, but also that we had people like Eddie McCoy come and talk in person. And you know, if you know the story, Eddie is one of the real important activists in that story, and still somebody who's very socially active and a great historian in the town of Oxford. And, you know, we had people like Tim Tyson there. And I mean, that's just pretty special, because that's North Carolina history. And it's, you know, people don't, you know, a lot of people know the story about Dickie Morrow and what happened to him. You know, really kind of a late day lynching, 1970. But I think a lot of people are surprised to learn that part of North Carolina history, and it needs to be the type of thing we talk about more so that we understand kind of the journey that we've gone on together. So, you know, when we have opportunities to do plays like that, or plays that address, challenges that women experience, like women's empowerment plays. We've done a few things that kind of fall under that category. We've done some plays that look at challenges that LGBT folks have experienced. Really interesting play we did a year and a half ago called Perfect Arrangement that dealt with kind of the discrimination that queer people experienced in working for the federal government. They were fired in huge numbers during the Red Scare,